Um, First, I'm going to introduce my friend Dr. Jack Singer through Jack's introduction, and then I'm going to give my own introduction, which is a little more off the cuff. So you're joining us for a webinar called Actionable Steps to Develop the Mindset of a Champion Financial Services Professional. Have you ever wondered what it takes to become an Olympic gold medal winner? Would you like to learn the exact same blueprint for success and be able to put it to immediate use in both your financial services career and in your life? Of course we would, Jack. In this cutting edge program, you'll learn actionable skills which will help you to dramatically reduce your stress, very important, develop the number one trait that all true champions possess, and release the true potential that lies within. This is the fourth presentation. I think it is, Jack, fourth, right? It's the fourth presentation for our valued clients from Dr. Jack Singer. Jack has a Ph.D. in industrial organizational psychology and a Post-Doctorate in clinical sports psychology. He has worked with elite athletes and teams for the past 47 years, including 3 Olympic gold medal winners, many world champions, and hundreds of professional elite junior athletes. He now coaches and teaches the exact same game-changing blueprint for success in financial professionals, CEOs, executives, medical and legal professionals, and teams of employees in all industries. Dr. Jack is a frequent guest on CNN, Fox Sports, ESPN, and The Glenn Beck Show. He's an author of more than 197 articles in business, sports, financial services, and psychology periodicals, and is the author of 4 books, including The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide. He has served on the faculties of 6 universities, including an assistant professorship at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Jack, that is awesome, and it's official. Now let me add my 2 cents worth. I've known you maybe 3 or 4 years at this point. Mm-hmm. You are one of the most insightful men I know, one of the most insightful people I know. You're a heck of a nice guy, and this is our 4th program. Of all the webinars I do, right, and we do a lot of webinars with other marketers, with other vendors in the industry, providing for technology services to the industry. Jack, literally, when you are talking, I am writing. It is pretty much like I have grown a lot over the 3 programs we've done and through our friendship and our camaraderie and our communication in the industry. And so for everybody who's attending, you're lucky today, right? To have a renowned psychologist like Dr. Jack Singer at our disposal today. I want you to ask questions. It's a good idea to set aside your distractions. Of course, use the chat box or the Q&A box if you've got questions for Jack. You guys, Jack is the pro's pro. I mean, he can't tell you exactly who he's worked with, but I know he's worked with my favorite Green Bay Packer team and several others. So I know a lot of that's under lock and key, but Jack, you're awesome. I thank you so much for doing this with us a 4th time. How great is that? Dr. Jack Singer, thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate it.
Well, Charlie, that was probably the best introduction I've ever had. So I need to take you on the road with me like you have nothing else to do, right? Yeah.
You know, I'd like that. Just let me know. I'll show up there.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Charlie Van Derven. And social advisors, one of the greatest ideas that I've ever come across for financial advisors. And you were gracious enough to let me try it myself at one point, and I thought it was fabulous. And I'm hoping all the people here, if they're not on it already, need to explore social advisors.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that.
Today, I'm going to present a program, as you heard, titled Actionable Skills to Quickly Develop the Mindset of a Champion Financial Services Professional. This is a proven blueprint for success that I've used for over 47 years with not only elite athletes and 3 Olympic gold medal winners, but with financial professionals. You know, many years ago, I ran into a financial professional who needed some counseling, and I realized quickly that financial professionals are very much like elite athletes. Most of them aren't living up to their potential, and they have the potential to do it. So I decided to convert my practice from athletes to financial professionals, and that's when I wrote the book, The Financial Advisor's Ultimate Stress Mastery Guide, which, by the way, we'll be offering for you if you're interested at a major discount today. Charlie's going to put the picture of it up.
Yeah, I shared the wrong screen there, Jack. My apologies. I think this one is the teachers.
Yeah. Oh, I gave you the wrong book.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay,
That's
so I have
okay.
another one called the Financial Advisor Stress Mastery Guide. This one was for teachers. That's funny.
Yeah.
I have that available for you. And if you went on Amazon, it would be 37 bucks. But if you wanted me to send you the email version, it's only 15. You just have to send me an email. And I'm going to give you my email address here to use for this and for any questions that don't get answered. It's drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com. drjack at advisingtheadvisors, ADVISORS.com. And we can do that. If you want the hard copy, it's 25. And if you want the email version, it's 15. So enough of that commercial, but there will be 2 additional very valuable bonuses for all attendees today that I'm going to share with you at the end. So stick around. So today, the first thing I'm going to do is teach you the #1 cause of any stress you'll ever experience. You may say, well, how does he know what stress I'm going to experience? Well, when you hear me explain, you'll know that it doesn't matter what stress you experience. I know the cause, and I can teach you how to deal with the cause so you can avoid that. And this will help you to improve your career, to develop your own personal life outside of your career. And guess what? The research shows that the stuff that I'm teaching can actually extend your life. Believe that. So you have a lot of things. And the second thing I'm going to teach you is a warp speed mental toughness method that I use with every athlete, with every financial professional, to quickly reduce stress, to reduce self-doubt, worry, anxiety, whenever negative emotions creep in. In short, I want to teach you how to release this huge untapped potential that I believe lies within each of you and gets buried under stress and its nasty cousins, self-doubt, lack of confidence, worry, anxiety. You know, in my 47-year career as a professional sports psychologist, I've helped hundreds of elite athletes and hundreds of advisors who have never lived up to their potential to become champions. And as Charlie mentioned, including 3 Olympic gold medal winners, which it was my pleasure to work with. In my work with advisors, I've come to the strong belief that all of you are really gifted, but you don't know when to open up those gifts because the gifts are buried under self-doubt, self-criticism, beating yourself up, worrying that you won't be good enough, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk about all of that. So how does an elite athlete or an elite advisor uncover these gifts and talents that lie within and become a champion at what they do? That's the focus of this webinar. Now, we all think we know what causes our stress. For example, let me share with you what some of my financial professional clients who came for me for help believe caused their stress when they came to see me. Client number 1. This advisor believed that his stress was caused by struggling to maintain a work-life balance to make everyone happy, his clients, his boss, and his family. So he contacted me for help. The next client, this financial professional, believed that her stress was from the grind of trying to grow her business and increase her assets under management, which she wanted help for and thought she needed anti-anxiety medication. Client number 3, this advisor complained to me about the stress caused by dealing with difficult clients during challenging times. He couldn't sleep on Sunday evenings, anticipating what the work week was going to start like the next day. And he wanted sleeping medication and help with his anxiety. By the way, in my book, there's a whole chapter on dealing with difficult clients. So, you know, what I'm talking about today is all in the book, but the book has 77 methods of dealing with stress. We're going to talk about a couple of them here today. The book obviously goes into much more detail. The next client was worried about the complexities of managing portfolios, given market volatility and information overload and the breadth of product choice. He felt overwhelmed and contacted me for help to find a new career because he thought he just couldn't make it in this career field. And finally, the last client advisor believed that her stress was caused by not knowing how to really differentiate herself from the competition. She was feeling a lot of pressure to meet certain quotas and to increase her AUM, but she really didn't know how to differentiate herself. And by the way, I have a method for you differentiating yourself, which is one of the bonuses that comes at the end. Oh, we're going to have a Q&A about halfway through, by the way. So gather up your questions and you can stick them in the chat box and I'll stop halfway through and then we'll have more at the end. So what do these 5 financial professionals have in common? Well, they certainly all suffered from major stress. But it would surprise you to know that none of these situations that they faced and complained about actually caused their stress. That's right, I'll say that again. None of the situations they faced and complained about actually caused their stress. What we now know, and this, when I say we, I mean in the field of psychology, it's the most important discovery in the field of psychology and psychotherapy in the last 50 years. We now know that situations and events that take place in your life never cause stress. Negative, self-defeating emotions such as anxiety, fear, frustration, anger are never caused by events and situations that occur in your life or work. They are caused by the conversations you have in your head about these events. Now, this is ancient knowledge. It's been ignored until about 50 years ago. For example, Epictetus, a Greek philosopher way back when the Greeks were operating, said, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views of which they take of them. So anxiety, the first advisor felt, was not from trying to maintain a work-life balance. The second advisor trying so hard to increase her assets under management, that didn't cause her stress. Dealing with difficult and aggressive clients did not cause the third client stress. Handling the complexities of market volatility, etc., did not cause the fourth client stress. And the last client was not under stress from trying to differentiate herself from the competition. But for each of these clients, their stress was caused by the conversations they had in their heads about these situations. These conversations were negative, self-defeating, poisonous, internal conversations, which spiked their stress and led to a lack of confidence and fear of failure. We all have that negative voice that if we don't take charge of it, it will take charge and keep in charge of us. So for client number 1, it was the conversation about the work-life balance that caused the stress. For example, I don't know how to take more time with my family without feeling guilty about not taking the time to do everything I can to help my clients. That's an example of a toxic thought that caused the stress. For client 2, it was the conversation in her head about the struggle to increase her assets under management that caused her stress. Example, what if I run out of new clients? What am I going to do? For client number 3, it was the conversation about dealing with difficult and aggressive clients that caused his stress. How can I avoid dealing with this client? And I remember he wanted to find out if I could help him find a way to never have to talk to this client. But, we went to the chapter of my book and found much more logical ways of dealing with this. For client 4, it was the conversation in his head about how to deal with market complexities and the breadth of product choices. For example, am I doing the right thing for my clients? What if I do the wrong thing? What if they lose money? These are the obsessive, negative, toxic thoughts that advisor went through. And finally, for client number 5, it was the conversation in her head about differentiating herself from the competition that caused her stress. Example, what if I'm just an average advisor? Can I really succeed? Well, there is some good news here. I'm sure that for most of the people listening today, I've hit home with at least some of these items with you. But what's the good news? The good news is you can change your thinking. This is not like a terminal illness where you can't do anything about it. You can change your thinking. You can learn about your self-talk habits and take charge of them. And that's part of what we're going to do today. Like all of us, for all these clients, the conversations they had in their heads were long-standing, unfortunate self-talk habits that triggered something which we call the imposter fear. The imposter fear, if I was going to use a poker analogy, would be like everybody who knows you, your family, your supervisor, your colleagues, they think you're a royal flush, but inside your head, you feel like a pair of sixes. It's only a matter of time before they find out that I'm really not as good as they think I am, and that's going to be mortifying for me. That's why we call this the imposter fear. You feel like you're an imposter. You've been faking it all this time. So instead of focusing on talent and skills and the success you've had, the self-talk is dominated by poisonous, toxic thoughts. These habits come from something we call iceberg core beliefs. We call them iceberg core beliefs because, like an iceberg, which only a little of it sits above the water, only a little bit of these core beliefs are in our conscious awareness. The rest lies below our consciousness, and we just keep believing them because nobody's pointing them out to them. Let me give you examples of negative self-defeating iceberg beliefs. See if you can identify with any of these. If I don't sign a new client, it's my fault and I feel like a failure. Asking for help is a sign of weakness, so I can't really get a mentor because that means I'm weak. There's a perfect way to do my job and I must struggle to maintain perfection because anything less makes me feel like a failure. I need to avoid confrontations with clients at all costs. In fact, I just have to do what they want and please everybody I meet so they'll like me. I don't have control over my personal happiness or misery. It's built into me. I can't do anything about it. I'll never be as capable at performing as well as my coworkers or peers, and I just need to accept that fact. It's easier to avoid my difficulties and problems than to face them. If I fly under the radar, hopefully these problems will just go away. Clients and prospects can see right through me and they know my inadequacies. I can't change my personality. It's in my DNA, so it's fixed. No, it isn't, but that's what people with iceberg core beliefs believe. Everyone who knows me is being fooled. They think I have more talent and ability than I know I do. It's only a matter of time before my weaknesses will show. So, ladies and gents, here's the takeaway. It's the conversations, the thoughts and beliefs in your head about a situation or event that determines both your emotional and your behavioral response. What's important to understand is that those conversations are either nutritious or healthy, or they're toxic and poisonous. And it's all based on habits which we can change because ultimately you are in charge of your thinking habits. So psychologists now know that most of the deficiencies, limitations, and problems that people have are essentially rooted in their self-talk. Learned scholars knew this centuries ago, but nobody listened. For example, Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and philosopher, said this: "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Nobody listened. In the 1890s, William James, who's the father of psychology, said, "The greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing their inner attitudes in their minds, can change their outer aspects of their lives." And he also said this: "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." Why didn't anyone listen to William James? 50 years ago, somebody decided, oh boy, I had an aha experience. And now all of psychotherapy, which we call cognitive behavioral therapy, is based on your thinking instead of what happened to you as a child. It's all based on something that was known many years ago. And this is
Jack,
what we call your mindset.
Jack, can I dive in for a second?
Yes.
I recently heard we have on average of 6,000 thoughts a day. I also heard that 80% of those thoughts are negative and 95% of those thoughts are the same as the thoughts yesterday.
That's correct.
That's crazy, right?
It is crazy.
The power of those thoughts.
It's
6,000 thoughts a day, 80%
except
negative.
you gave an underestimate. It's over 10,000 thoughts a day and over 90% are negative.
That's crazy, right?
And
All right.
I'm going
I
to
didn't mean
talk
to
about
jump
that
in.
in a minute, but thank you for bringing that up.
You got it.
So this is all mindset. Your subconscious belief and habits since childhood determine all of your moods, your attitudes and behaviors, and they're below the surface driving your thinking. The unconscious is the driver of 90% of mindset. And since it's the conscious mind that makes decisions, and that's only 10%, it explains why nothing changes until we can get to the unconscious habits that are uncovered and you can change them. By the way, when I'm working with financial advisors or athletes or anybody else, one of the main tools I use is teaching them self-hypnosis. Why do I do that? And I make recordings. I do that so that they can tap into the unconscious mind and start changing those habits that are buried and have been there forever. Now, all of these methods, as I mentioned before, are spelled out in my book. And again, if you want the book, just email me, drjack@advisingtheadvisors.com, hard copy, 25, email copy, 15. Now, I'm ready to open it up to see if there are any other questions at this point. Do we have anything going on in the chat box, Charlie? I'm not hearing you.
Just realized I was on mute.
Yeah.
Jack, yeah. So Michael asks, and this came up early, how does one go from working with the Air Force Academy, sports teams, to now financial services? Bridge that gap for us a little bit, if you would.
Well, what happened, I was working, exclusively with athletes, and then a financial advisor from Australia contacted me and said that he was having a lot of difficulties with anger and anxiety. And even though he wasn't an athlete, could I help him? And I learned a bit more about what he does as a financial advisor. And I said, absolutely, I can help you. In fact, I can teach you the same skills I teach to elite athletes. You're an elite advisor. Why won't it work for you? And he said, that sounds interesting. And that's what started the whole thing.
Cool.
So I then realized there's a whole group of people here in the financial services industry who've never been exposed to anything like this because there's never been a book like this. I did some research. There was no book on how to deal with stress in this industry. And I decided this is my opportunity to help a lot of people. And since then, it's gone to doctors, to lawyers, to all kinds of professionals. I just use the same blueprint with everybody.
I think that's wonderful. I think, there's a lot of great training in this industry, but it's all product training. I
Right.
shouldn't say all of it, overgeneralization. There's a lot of product training. There's a lot of sales training, right? There is
Right.
very little training for stress mastery,
That's right.
for mindset mastery. So listen, I got some ideas that you and I can talk about offline that maybe we can make some introductions that start to roll that out. I think young advisors, right? There's a badge of honor for advisors just burning the candle when they're young,
Absolutely.
especially at the large firms. So
absolutely, with quotas and stress and things like that, if you don't do it, then, we're going to let you
even,
go.
I worked 80 hours this week. Well, I worked 90 hours this
Right.
week.
Right. Yeah. So obviously this is something everyone can use. And by the way, those of you in the audience, if you're in a place where they're looking for speakers for advisors, that's something I do. I'm a professional speaker as well as doing one-on-one therapy with those people, with you people, actually, is what I'm saying. Any other questions?
Yeah, we've actually got 3 more as of this point. They're rolling in as we talk. So SR says some thoughts are indeed positive, right? We talked about the level of negative thoughts. How do we increase the proportion of positive thoughts?
Well, that's coming up in the next half. So you've really figured out what I'm doing. It really means first understanding where the negative thoughts are. Most people don't understand it unless they focus on it. And once you do that, you have to recognize these are thoughts I no longer can live with. And that's where my mental toughness training comes in the second part. So you're going to learn about all this.
Jack, this next one is a good one. The person who sent it in kept it anonymous, and based on what it is, I probably would have also. I wouldn't have read a name anyway. A common thought for me is, why call a client or do an annual review or ask for a referral when I'm not going to get the sale or referral anyway? That's one. Or if I get the opportunity, I won't be able to close it. 2, these are actually thoughts that are stronger than wanting to provide for my family. Dude, that breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to thank whoever it was who shared that. This is a serious issue of lack of confidence, which is based on sometimes on experience, but also on a fulsome view of who you have and what you have to offer. I think I'm going to tell you what one of those bonuses is now, because for this person in particular, and for a lot of other people, they may want to know this. For the first 10 people who email me, I'm going to do a free coaching session, one-on-one with them, confidential coaching session. All you have to do is email me, and I will offer you a free coaching session And this person in particular, I would really want to zone in on that person and help her or him to understand where that's coming from and what you need to do to start changing it, because those kinds of attitudes and beliefs will undermine your happiness in many areas of your life, not just your job. So thanks for sharing that with us.
We've got one other, Jack, from Randall. What do you think of NLP?
NLP is part of, it's what I think it's a part of self-hypnosis. It's powerful. We don't have time to discuss much about it here today, but NLP is a wonderful skill. If you can learn, will help you with uncover all of these thoughts and so forth. Yes, NLP is a wonderful technique.
I agree. I'm just kind of dabbling now, Jack. You know, I've spoken about it before, and I don't know. You've turned me on to a lot of mindset. I used to, and I think a lot of people do this. When I spend time alone, which is, you know, paddle surfing in the ocean or walking the golf course or whatever it is, time in my head, I tend, not anymore, but I used to tend to have like made up conversations, things that would, you know, maybe I had a person I was in conflict with in some point, or I would rehearse these conversations that were never actually going to happen.
Yes.
And I'd tell myself, well, I'm just processing it. It's a good thing I'm processing it. Oh my gosh, I was destroying myself with that stuff. I wasn't
Yeah.
processing it all. It was totally
Right.
ruminating, right?
That's right. And it's ruminating in a bad way, not in a good way.
Yeah, and I'd make excuses for it. Now, recently, I learned a Navy SEAL breathing technique. So it's 4 in through the nose, hold for 4, 8 out through the mouth. And so every time I go to a place like that, I snap in this breathing technique, and I might have to do it 4 or 5 times, and then the thought is gone.
You know, it's amazing because that breathing technique is part of my mental toughness 7-step thing that I'm going to talk about in the second half.
Awesome.
So,
And Chris asked, what's NLP stand for? So Chris, neuro linguistic programming. And
yeah,
Jack,
and
I don't know
it's
if you want to,
really,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you know what? The neurosciences in the last few years have been amazing at helping us realize that every thought that goes through our mind translates electronically and chemically to every cell in our body immediately, which is why let's say I'm working with an athlete and the athlete says, gee, I don't know what happened. You know, I got up to bat and suddenly I froze. I couldn't stop myself. I was squeezing the bat too hard. That's because you had a negative toxic thought in your mind that preceded that. The thought was something like, what if I strike out? Or I hope I can move the runner across, but what if I can't? Any kind of a negative thought will freeze you, and I'm going to explain why that happens in the second half. So let's jump into it if it's okay, so we'll have time to cover all of this.
That's great. Go for it, Jack. We are through the questions for now, but keep them coming if you got them.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is an example of all of this from my own life. It was a beautiful day in San Diego. It was a nice June day, and I have been fortunate enough to be invited to keynote a financial advisors conference on the island of Maui in Hawaii. And boy, were we happy. My wife and I get on the plane, a 4-day free vacation in Maui, plus they're paying me on top of that to do the speech. So everybody's happy. They're all going to Hawaii, great day, and the plane takes off. I sit on the aisle. My wife sits to my left on the window. She gets up and goes to the restroom and she comes back. And I say, okay, I have to go to the restroom now. So I go up and go to the restroom, and then I come back. And as I'm sitting down on my aisle seat, I notice the woman across the aisle from me is feverishly writing something on one of those little napkins they give you on the airlines, a little napkin, and looking at me as she's writing. Now, my mind is like going through fantasies here. Like, I haven't had a note passed to me by anybody, a female, since 6th grade. In fact, it happened so rarely, I can remember the name of the person. Susan Bonelli gave me a note in 6th grade. Why would she be writing me a note? Can't she see I'm with someone? Plus, I'm old enough to be her grandfather. Why would she be sending me a note? But my imagination is jumping through hoops here. I can't wait to see it. Feverishly, she finishes the note, and this is the actual note, and hands it over to me. And here's what it says. Sir, I know I'm going to embarrass you by saying this, but I think you'd want to know that the toilet seat cover is hanging out of the back of your pants. What? Oh my God. Now I had a choice at that point. Choice number one, spend the rest of the flight with your head cocked to the left, looking past your wife out the window because you can't face this woman. Choice number two, why would I want to be stressed for 6 hours when I don't have to be stressed for 6 hours? So I looked at her and I said, thank you so much. And don't worry about embarrassing me. What you've done is you've given me an opening for every speech I do from now on. This is going into all of my speeches. So you see, this was great. So I took what could have been a terrible situation and I turned it into something very positive. And that's one of the keys in everything we talk about is you don't have to buy into these negative, embarrassing, worrisome kinds of thoughts that go through our mind. You can decide you're going to do something about it. So the key takeaway is the conversation that I had in my head about that event determined my mood. If I had a conversation that said, oh my God, I'm so mortified, I can't look that way, that I'm so embarrassed, then I would have been anxious, stressed, and frustrated for the whole trip. My attitude and the resultant behavior would have been based on that negative thought. But no, I found something positive I could do with that, so that didn't have to happen at all. So events or situations that take place in your life or work, you have an internal conversation about it. You make a decision about what that conversation is going to be. If it's toxic, you're going to learn now and through my book and other ways. By the way, if we don't get to some of your questions or they're too personal to ask here, just send me an email. It's all confidential, and I will answer your question in an email, later on after the conference is over. So it's either going to be toxic or healthy conversation, and this was a big revolution in psychotherapy. And your internal conversations are based on thinking habits and beliefs about ourselves and our abilities that have been reinforced thousands of times unconsciously. But you are never a prisoner of your past behavioral habits or even your DNA. Research shows you can modify your mindset by understanding your self-defeating internal dialogue and belief system habits and deciding to change those habits that are not healthy. Example of stress-causing toxic self-talk. Any sentence that begins with what if, or I hope I don't, or I don't think I can, or maybe it will work, or I should have done something differently, or I probably won't be able to. Those are examples, and the book has many more, of negative, self-defeating, toxic self-talk. We need to get rid of those kinds of sentences. What do we change it to? Things like I can, I will be able to, it will work. I learned from this and I'll be able to move on. So is the voice in your head mostly toxic or is it healthy? Does that voice give you self-doubt, fear, anxiety, or worry about a situation? Or does it raise your self-esteem and your confidence and encourage you in difficult times? You see, the goal is to create harmony between our mindset, our emotions, and our behaviors. Almost like if you think about an orchestra, we want harmony between the string section, the brass, the timpani, all the other parts. Otherwise, it sounds like it's not in harmony and it's scratchy and awful. And that's what we're doing to ourselves when our mindset doesn't match up with what we want our emotions and behaviors to be. So if you change the way you think about yourself, you can change your beliefs about yourself. And if you change the beliefs about yourself, you can change the internal pharmacy, which actually impacts your health and longevity. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that every thought, like I just told you, every thought, positive or negative, chemically and electronically transfers to every cell in your body instantly. Now, listen to this figure because this figure is dramatically different than the one that Charlie just gave us. The average person has 60,000 thoughts a day, and research shows that the vast majority, over 90%, are negative and lead to self-doubt, worry, insecurity, and lack of confidence. And negative emotions like fear, anxiety, and stress resulting from toxic self-talk wire into the brain 1,000 times faster than positive emotions in order to protect us. This goes back to, when we were living in caves, and the ancient reptilian brain was the first one that was developed to keep us alive and help us alert to danger. And we still have that ancient reptilian part of our brain. And it tries to keep us vigilant so that we won't get eaten by an animal or a dinosaur or what have you. That part of your brain provides what we call the fight or flight response. You probably remember that from biology. What happens when your brain thinks that there's danger, it goes into fight or flight mode. That was developed millions of years before the cortex, which is where we do our planning and thinking. Now, that amygdala, that part of the brain that puts you into fight or flight mode, doesn't differentiate between a lion chasing you from worrying about your work-life balance. It doesn't differentiate someone pointing a gun at you from worrying about your assets under management. It doesn't differentiate the fear connected with getting mugged in an alley from dealing with difficult clients. It doesn't differentiate fighting in a war zone from the complexities of managing someone's portfolio. And it doesn't differentiate between being on an airplane undergoing tremendous turbulence from the stress connected with worrying about how you'll differentiate yourself from the competition. All of these things happen the same way. So when you start worrying about things, your brain goes into fight or flight mode, which changes the pH of your blood because your brain thinks you have to be alert for some major danger. And now you don't feel well. You get anxious. You may get depressed. You may feel worried. All of this comes from you going into this worrisome fight or flight mode that you didn't even know you were doing. It also leads to stress hormones flowing, going into your arms and legs, making your heart beat faster, so your blood pressure goes up. Your arms and legs may get tight for the fight or flight situation. All of this happens, and the worst part of it is it impacts your immune system in a negative way because your brain thinks there's an urgent danger because you're worried. It thinks there's a danger, and it wants to marshal all the resources in your body to deal with the danger, so it shuts off all the systems that aren't necessary to evade the danger. One of those systems is your immune system. So think about it. If 30 times a day you're worried about traffic where you live, or you're upset about what somebody said to you, or you're having difficulty with your teenage children, if these are going on 20 or 30 times a day, each time it's turning on your fight or flight system and shutting off the immune system. So why do you think your health would get impacted if you're constantly shutting down your immune system? Why do people who worry a lot and go through toxic thinking wind up in all kinds of doctors' offices and the doctors can't find anything wrong with them when they do the blood work? It's from the stress caused by turning on the fight or flight nervous system from all the toxic thinking. Many illnesses are caused by or made worse by that kind of thinking. In my practice of clinical psychology for over 45 years, I can't tell you how many specialists in medicine sent people to me that they said they have symptoms, but we don't know why they're having the symptoms. Let me give you some examples. If you turn on the fight or flight nervous system, blood continually leaves the GI tract to flow into the muscles of the arms and legs to prepare for the fight or flight. That can lead to vomiting, energy loss, chronic digestive problems like gastritis, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome. Secondly, muscles continually tightening because you're putting yourself in the fight or flight can lead to muscle spasms, pain in your muscles, tension, neck and back pain, migraine headaches, jaw clenching. Glucose spills into the bloodstream every time you go into fight or flight because you need the energy of the glucose to escape the danger. So if you're doing this to yourself all day, it's one of the known contributors to diabetes. If your blood pressure rises to 180 over 130 when you're facing someone who's threatening your life, your body's reacting appropriately. But if your pressure is 180 over 130 several mornings a week as you get ready to go to work, you're at risk for chronic cardiovascular diseases and kidney diseases. And I'll tell you one of the biggest ones that impacts most people listening today. When you put yourself in the fight or flight situation, adrenaline squirts into your bloodstream to make you alert so that you won't be sleepy. because you have to deal with the threat. So if you're doing this, especially at bedtime, you start worrying about what you have to do at work tomorrow, or what you didn't do today, or what happened today that you're unhappy about, you're squirting adrenaline into your bloodstream, which is preventing you from sleeping. That's why people under stress have insomnia, and they try to take care of it with sleeping pills. It's the worrying, the toxic thoughts that are leading to all of this. We know that just the opposite can happen. We know from all the research done with placebos, I'm sure you've heard about this, where people think something good is happening, it actually converts to something good happening in their bodies. Whenever they come out with a new drug, let's say they're looking for a drug to reduce anxiety, they take a group of people and they give them the actual drug, and they take another group of people who thinks they're getting the drug, but it's a placebo, which means it's a sugar pill. It doesn't do anything. The amazing thing is 30 or 40% of the people getting the placebo get rid of the anxiety because they think they're taking the right pill. So you see, positive thinking actually impacts your body and your mind in a very positive way. Breast cancer victims who have positive thoughts, who've been told to think positively no matter what the doctor has told you, live an average of 7 years longer than those who don't have those positive thoughts. And the studies go on and on and on. So at this point, according to one of the questions that was asked earlier, how do we change all of this? I'm going to give you a method now. And of course, there are many more in the book, as I told you. I'm going to give you a method, a simple mental toughness technique here for quickly reducing stress, self-doubt, worry, or anxiety whenever these emotions creep in. What is mental toughness? It's a powerful, in my case, it's a 7-step technique that only takes about 5 minutes, by the way, but just one of the 77 techniques in the book. It's a skill that derails toxic thoughts, prevents the toxic and emotional and behavioral responses to those thoughts, and keeps your mindset productive and healthy. It involves looking at every challenge as an opportunity. It involves the ability to bring what I call your A game consistently, whether it's work or with your family or with your friends. It's the ability to bounce back quickly from adversity, such as worrying about work-life balance, or telling yourself you won't be able to increase your assets under management, or dealing with difficult clients, or portfolio decisions, differentiating yourself. And it's 7 steps. Now, I don't expect you to, I talk fast because I'm trying to squeeze everything in. I will send you this in an email if you want to follow up on it. Don't worry about writing these 7 steps down. I can send you a slide with all of these on it. So here are the steps. Whenever you experience a negative emotion, whether it's anxiety, fear, being upset, impatience, anger, depression, step 1, recognize the negative trigger thoughts that preceded the emotion. I'm feeling really stressed right now. What was I thinking a few minutes ago? These are the trigger thoughts. Thoughts always trigger the emotions. Step 2, I recommend getting a rubber band, like the ones that come in the mail. This is one of those thick rubber bands that come in the mail. So it's called a number 64 rubber band. Put it on your wrist. As soon as you recognize you're giving yourself a negative thought, or what that negative thought was that led to the emotion, like, what if this happens, or I hope this doesn't happen, or I'm upset about that, or I should have done this, snap the rubber band. That's step 2, to stop the thinking dead in its tracks. Step 3, do what Charlie told you, the kind of breathing that they use in the SEALs and every other major group. Opera singers use this, actors use this. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. You're pushing out the diaphragm that's behind your stomach. You breathe in through your nose to the count of 4. You hold it for 4 seconds, and then, like you're blowing through a straw, a big exhale to the count of 7. If you fold your hands over your stomach, as you're breathing in, your hands should move out, and as you exhale, your hands should move back in. Anxious people usually tell me, oh, my hands aren't moving at all. That's right, because that's shallow breathing. It's all in your shoulders and your chest. You need to train yourself just when you're watching TV or whatever. When you breathe, your hand should move out, and when you exhale, your hand should move back in. Step 4, ask yourself some key questions about these trigger thoughts. Challenge those negative thoughts. Like, where's the evidence to support these anxiety-producing thoughts? Am I just making this up because it could happen? What's the probability that what I'm afraid of will actually happen? Could I be exaggerating this in my mind? Am I turning a minor setback into a major catastrophe in my mind? Is there any alternative explanation that could explain what happened or what will happen next? Are my conclusions based on emotions rather than facts? Am I using extreme words and phrases in my thoughts? Extreme words are like, I'm always screwing this up, or you're always doing this to me, or I'm never going to be able to fix this. Am I assuming the worst will happen without any evidence of it? If my best friend or someone I love had this thought, what would I tell them? Why don't I follow what I would tell someone else to do? Am I jumping to conclusions that aren't completely justified? Have I been in the situation before? What happened? So you can see there's a million of these questions you can ask yourself to begin to challenge those negative thinking habits that you're stuck with. Step 5. Visualize a personal highlight reel in your head, like a movie in your head. Go back in time to when something that had to do with this situation, let's say for a financial advisor, the situation that's leading to the stress is worried about walking into a seminar and presenting a seminar and getting clients out of it, or feeling like a failure, I'll never get a client out of it. When have you ever done this in the past that you've been successful? I don't care if it was something that happened in high school. Get in your mind a personal highlight reel of the biggest success you had in that realm and play it as if it's happening today. Where were you? What was the weather like? Was it indoors or outdoors? What was the situation? Did people praise you at the end? The personal highlight reel. Why? Because 99% of us always think about times we screwed up. We don't think about times we did really well. We let them disappear. Look at the thoughts that are producing your negative emotions and visualize your greatest personal success, business or otherwise, as if it was a movie. And do that consistently till you can really picture it. Practice that when you're going to sleep with your eyes closed. What is one of the greatest success situations I had? Make it into a movie. Have several of them so you can rotate them. So that's step 5. Step 6, dispute the toxic thoughts and replace them with rational thoughts based on positive experience, healthy dialogue. So for example, if the person was thinking, how can I please my family and still give my job and clients the time they deserve, change it to something like, I don't need to be focused on my job and career 24/7 in order to be very successful. I will make a concerted effort to devote an appropriate portion of my time to my family who supports me totally. Secondly, how will I manage client portfolios with all this market volatility, digitization, information overload? Instead of thinking that way, change it to, I remain focused on my core investment values and I will share those consistently with my clients. I have the skills and tools to help my clients' portfolios grow despite market volatility. I proactively do virtual meetings and provide information for my clients to feel safe. Third, how can I increase my assets under management? Change that to, with the guidance of tools like social advisors, I can develop a framework for bringing in new clients consistently. I trust the system. And step 7, you anchor it with another series of breathing. So let's go through the steps quickly again. Step 1, recognize the negative trigger thoughts. Step 2, use the rubber band to stop those thoughts dead in their tracks. Step 3, do this diaphragmatic breathing to calm you down. Step 4, ask key questions of yourself to challenge those negative thoughts, and you'll find that most of them are not based in anything real, they're just habits. Step 5, develop a highlight reel of successful things that you've done in the past. Step 6, dispute the toxic thoughts with healthy thoughts. And step 7, anchor it with another series of centering breaths. So developing this mental toughness skill leads to increased confidence. It leads to lower stress. It leads to making fewer mistakes. and it leads to enhanced physical and mental health. And speaking of enhanced, physical and mental health, I told you in the beginning, this could even save your life. Many years ago, when I was exposed to the client events that advisors do, I was struck with a thought. I went to several of these events and found that, most of them are, dinners in the back of a restaurant, hoping that they'll get new clients out of it. And people come mainly for the dinner and then leave. Or maybe it's a wine tasting. I said, why can't advisors do something that's of tremendous value to not only their own clients, so they'll want to come, but everyone will want to bring a guest. And most of these guests will be so impressed with the topic that they'll say, maybe this is the advisor I should be using. So I developed a major unique client event called How to Live Much Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would. It's a funny title, but a serious subject. It's the psychology of life extension. I teach clients at these client events how to live longer and better. Do you think that packs the house? That everyone wants to bring someone to hear Dr. Jack talk about this? Do you think the advisors get new clients out of it? And so the last bonus I'm offering you today is that any of these people who are here today, I will give you 25% off of one of those workshops. If you're interested, write to me again and say you want to know more about my client event, How to Live Longer Than Your Kids Hoped You Would. Well, I think this is a great time to stop. Most speakers don't know when to shut up, but I do. There's two types of speakers. You can do without. You can do without those who never stop to think and those who never think to stop. So at this point, I'm going to stop and open it up for final questions.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jack, wrapping up is the hardest thing to do as a speaker, I think.
Yep.
I memorized the first 30, last 30, and in between, I'm good enough on my points to go. So I will share with you that, again, I think you and I have known each other maybe 3 or 4 years at this point.
Right.
And so starting a business, hiring employees, servicing clients, whether that's financial services or social advisors, which is about 11 years old now, is really stressful. Having kids, I got teenage daughters. You have taught me so much. NLP is something that I'm, dabbling in a little bit, gathering knowledge around. A lot of my information, frankly, comes from, Instagram reels, following the right people on Instagram, right? I used to make an excuse. I used to tell people, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. And they go, oh, wow, look at what a charger you are. And I still do. 4:35 this morning. It was 5:30. Jack, it used to be, I couldn't sleep past that because I was stressed about the stuff that I had to do at 7 or 8. Like my eyes would pop open and and it was, a cortisol related stress. It was
Right.
bad news. And using a lot of the methodologies I've learned from you over the years, from other resources, I've changed all that. Like, sleeping is no longer a problem. The stress of running a small business and maintaining family and team and clients and everything else has largely fallen aside. Now there's still things that come up in the day-to-day, but they don't make the impact they used to make. So right. I have to personally thank you for much of that. It has literally transformed my life as a business owner. And I know it can for advisors who are under a lot of the same stresses. Bob, my new friend, Bob and I've known each other a few months. Thank you, Bob, for being here. Bob's wondering if you have an audio book, Jack, if there's an audio recording.
I don't have an audio recording of this. I have, let me think if I still have, I have old school CDs. People probably don't even have CD players anymore, but I have some old school CDs. When I make hypnotic recordings for people now, for my clients, I make them on these MP3 things, which I can email to them and then they listen. Yeah. What I can do is I can look and see if any of my webinars, like I've done now, if I still have recordings of them. And I could, if someone's interested, I'll look and see, and then send the link to those recordings, because that would be like an audio book. or
Yeah.
them looking into your recording today would be, like an audio book,
Yeah, and here's what I'll do is we'll get the recording out to everybody probably tomorrow.
right?
And Bob, I'll send you just the audio. So that recording will go out as an audio video on our website. But I'll get you the audio link as well, and then we'll save that for a period of time so you can download it. So, and anybody else who wants just the audio portion, by all means, put it in the chat, and I'll make sure that you get just the audio clip. But I mean, you'll also get the video recording of it. But yeah, Jack. So, I'm 51, Jack. You got just a couple of years on me.
A couple.
One of the things that I think there's a belief of is that at this stage of the game, it's difficult to change your thoughts. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, so to speak. What do you say to that? I've lived it. I've done it, and it's been recent. It's not something that's it's
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what
No,
what do you say to that doubt?
people can change at any time, and they just have to, they just have to tell themselves that they're going to do that. All of these client events I do, I'd say the average age of the clients there are 70 and above. And all these people are taking what I tell them to do. I give them the 10 top things that people who live past 100 do, and they're all adopting them. And they write to me, I did this, this, and this, and this is happening. People can change at any point, at any time.
Yeah.
And so don't ever use that as an excuse in your head for not trying to do something. Or thinking your DNA, well, my father's like this or my mother's like this, so I'm stuck. No, you're not. You can change everything. We now know in neuroscience that just with your thoughts, you can make major changes inside your mind and body.
Yeah, I like giving real life examples. Yesterday, after work hours, I'm driving to the golf course, and I talked to my dad. I usually talk to my dad when I'm in the car, and I got some windshield time. My dad's 77 years old. He's a retired truck driver. He has had a negative mindset about money his whole life. I grew up with that, right? Too broke, can't afford this, blah blah blah. He had to pay his health insurance. No, he's had cancer. He's on cancer meds. His cost of health is much more than his cost of insurance. I assure you that. And it's like $4,500 for the year. He's got plenty of money. I mean, he'll never spend the amount of money he has. He was so stressed out over a $4,000 bill that came in that he had forgot he was getting. And again, plenty of money to live on for the rest of his life. But for some reason, this poor man, and I'll say that because he can't get this out of his mind. He doesn't have resources like you that he taps into. I just think he thinks that this is how everybody is about a stressful subject like money.
It's funny that you would use that phrase at the end. I have a daughter who's an attorney, a highly stressed attorney whose managers have told her many times to read my books, but she won't do it. But she, one day when COVID came, the kind of law she practices is mergers and acquisitions. So when COVID came, there was not much of that business, and she was forced to be at home and just wait it out. And one day she called me and said, I can't believe it. This is what you've been talking to me about. I thought everybody lived the way I lived, and now I see what it's like to be relaxed. She had no idea. She thought the whole world was like her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. There's another way. If you are stressed out over your practice, over other things in your life, I promise you there's another way.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jack Singer, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, man. You have such an important message for our industry, and people don't have to live with the stress that they live with.
That's right.
So
It's always my pleasure. Anytime, Charlie. And thank you, everybody who joined in today. Take it to heart. I know that some of you people are going to make some major changes after you hear this, but if you really, for $15, I can send you the book on email and you'll have 77 techniques. So it's all you'll ever need. And everything I talked about today goes into much broader detail in the book.
Yeah. Well, you've got a ton of wisdom, Jack. I treasure you in my life. Thank you. And for everybody who joined us, an hour of your time, that's a lot to give up. That's the one commodity you don't have more of. So thank you for doing that as well. We'll get a recording out. If you've got any questions for Jack, again, it's Dr. Jack at advisingtheadvisors, ors.com. And I'll put my email in the chat real quick as well.
Yeah, and thanks, Christine, for the nice comment at the end. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let me find everyone here. All right. So my email's in the chat. If you're looking for, what we do is, I find in working with advisors for years that the number one thing that gets backburnered when you get busy is prospecting and growth. So we help you to automate a lot of those systems, so that as you get busy with clients and family, you continue to prospect on a daily basis. So we'd love to tell you more about that as well. Jack, thanks again.
My
And for
pleasure,
everybody,
Charlie. And take care of those teenagers and that lovely wife of yours who's busy writing a very important book.
yeah, she's working on a cool book about self-portrait photography. Yeah, she's working on a very cool
All
book.
right.
So, again, everybody who spend time with us, thank you very much. I hope that our paths cross soon. Dr. Jack, I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay, and if you have personal questions you didn't want to ask, I'll respond to them in email.
Awesome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.